Recently here in the UK, one of the most troubling pieces of legislation in recent years was passed in Parliament with little fuss, likely due to the distractions of the US election victory for Trump and the disarray within the supposed opposition parties. This wonderful new piece of legislation that feels like it was dragged straight out of 1984 or some other dystopian fantasy gives numerous state agencies the power to collect mass amounts of data regarding everyone's online presence. It requires that internet service providers and mobile networks store every scrap of connection history that you and everyone else makes, and to provide that information to the state whenever requested. But surely, of course, they'll need a good reason to be able to make these requests. Well, no, they do not need to provide a reason. They do not need to have any evidence of you doing anything, or even the vaguely defined reasonable belief that has protected people's privacy in the past. It is all open to them as they please. Thankfully, the data that an ISP can practically collect is somewhat limited at the moment, but that will only grow with time. The Act also gives those same agencies the freedom to hack into computers and phones, as well as to force manufacturers of those devices to hack into them, should they not be able to do so themselves, leaving no means of resistance from this invasive surveillance. Companies like Apple will no longer be able to refuse to break into iPhones like they famously did when the FBI requested it in the US. This, of course, is all being done under the guise of fighting terrorism, which it offers no means of doing, and as for the worthless argument that if you have nothing to hide, then you have no reason to worry, just doesn't hold up to any scrutiny. Those who do have something specific to hide will already be using encrypted communications and software such as Tor that provides online anonymity through various virtual private networks. These powers are open to massive abuses as well. When everyone's information is stored in such a manner, the incentives for people to hack into or otherwise gain access to it is greatly increased. Information, as they say, is power, and anyone who can get it has a lot of it. There's also the disturbing possibility that this can be used for political gains. The ability to see what your political opponents are doing and even hack into their machines opens many avenues of attack and a means to silence dissidents should they decide to do so. These are the kinds of powers that people like Kim Jong-un would be proud of, and is far more invasive than anything found elsewhere in the Western world, be it in Europe or even the US, which, as we know from Snowden's revelations, is certainly a big fan of mass surveillance and data collection. So you may as well hand over your computer and your phone, complete with passwords to every account you possess, every private conversation, every email, your political beliefs, your religious beliefs, your sexual preferences, your purchasing preferences, those, unflattering photos that you sent to your partner, all of it, now government knowledge and with no reason to believe it would even stay limited to them. The chances too of whistleblowers and the sources of journalists to bring to light any wrongdoing is now severely reduced. The state will know if you have incriminating evidence of their actions, and if they are acting in such a way already, for what reason would you ever suspect that they wouldn't use this knowledge to silence you or worse? What happens then if an even more authoritarian government takes power? The current social justice warriors in the universities and the media today, for example, should they ever, and there's no reason to suggest they won't, take political office, will have the power to be true thought police. Did you go on a website that expressed the wrong opinion? Did you post on a forum that you don't agree with something the government did? They'll know, and there's nothing to suggest that they won't act on that information or leak it at a convenient time. After all, they need not provide any reason with their requests for the information. Whilst there is little to nothing you can do to truly protect yourself from this totalitarian legislation, there are a few things you can do to at least mitigate its effects. Using Tor browser on your computer and something like Red Onion on your mobile can at least make your online history meaningless to them, and keeping all private conversations to encrypted communication methods will at least hide their content. As for hacking into your machines directly and without consequence, encrypting your devices could potentially help, but the powers in this bill would just mean that they would force the creators of the encryption software to decrypt it. Thankfully, there are some that encrypt it in a way that even they cannot reverse the process. Bearing in mind, of course, that while they won't know exactly what you're doing, who you're talking to, and what you're saying if you do use these methods, they will know that you're using them, and I wouldn't put it past them to use that as an excuse to violate you even further, not that they needed one anyway. For anyone who values or is concerned with their privacy and believes that they are entitled to even the slightest bit of privacy from the state, the UK is not the place to be, and may have now set a troubling precedent for other countries to follow. And on a somewhat related note, a second piece of legislation is currently also being proposed, this time to ban porn sites from showing certain kinds of content to people in the UK, with the rule of thumb being that if it cannot be sold on a DVD, it must be blocked from UK-based users, which of course restricts a lot of things and certainly constitutes censorship. That, however, is minor in comparison to the other part of this proposal, which will require them to go to further lengths to verify the age and in turn identity of those visiting the sites, inevitably resulting in millions of people having their personal details and sexual preferences stored in a database by those sites, posing further risk of hacking or having details of what they watch in private released to the public, be it for political gain or otherwise. Combined, these two bills show that the UK government and the Conservative Party that it consists of lacks even a rudimentary understanding of how the internet works, and the methods by which people can maintain their anonymity, and it also shows that they have no respect for the privacy of the individual, nor their freedom to decide on what content they wish and personally choose to view online. Having shown this disregard, there is very little to stop me from believing they may attempt to block or ban sites in future for other things, such as expressing the wrong opinions or criticising the wrong people. If you have not already, I would certainly recommend installing a VPN, such as private internet access, to protect your own right to privacy.